Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is The Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
And welcome everybody to The Irreverent Therapist. I'm Pam Hodeling, and sort of with us, sort of not, is Marilyn Bradford.
Well, I don't know. That makes me sound like something like I'm trying to beam up and I'm kind of fading in and out. I was watching Star Trek reruns this morning, but actually I'm sitting in the United Club in the Denver airport, so I'm going to be mostly muted, but I'm thrilled to be joining Pam, as we do, and our amazing guest that she's going to talk about right now. So I will put myself back on mute.
Yes, so Marilyn's going to be talking when she can, and we might hear background noise, but that's okay because we want her with us. So Marilyn mentioned our guest. We have the amazing Anne Maxwell with us today. Hello, Anne.
Hello, Pam, and hello, Marilyn, and I am so happy to be here.
Well, I am so excited. I even posted on Facebook that I was excited, and I don't know if you remember, Anne, but I am not a Facebook person.
I do remember. I'm not sure you even had an account before we first started.
So, and I'm going to tell everybody why I'm excited to have you on. So, Anne is many amazing things. She's a child and family play therapist. She's an access consciousness facilitator. She's an author and co-author of books, including Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree, which is a very different take on kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And also The Keys to Magic, a play therapist's handbook of family-centered play therapy. So she brings all these different perspectives to the work she does with kids, and she's been working with kids for many, many years. So actually, let me, Anne, introduce our topic and kind of what we're doing today, and then we'll go from there. So our topic today is Kids Done Different. How were you treated as a child? Were you honored as the unique and magical being that you were? Or were you expected to toe the family party line? What if there's a different way of being with and for kids that honors, empowers, and allows them to be exactly who they are? So anyway, the reason I'm so excited, Anne, is I know you have so much information, experience, tools, from a very different place for working with all kinds of kids, but especially kids who have these traditional diagnoses. And I'm just very excited for our listeners to hear what is possible that they didn't know is possible with kids.
So thank you. What a great intro. And I've been working with kids for a long time, and I think I probably was one of those kids growing up. And when I started out after graduate school working in a residential treatment center, and these kids all had these multiple labels, like ADD, ODD, ADHD, OCD, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, intermittent explosive disorder. That was the ones who would just explode all over you, the ones that got really mad and punched walls. And I mean, there are all these labels. And I really liked the kids. I got offered management positions and I never wanted to take them because I loved working with the kids and I didn't want to lose that contact, that connection. And they adored me and I adored them, and they did get better with me. And there was still so much more that I knew had to be possible for them. Mm-hmm. And it's like the tools that I was taught were the best around at the time. They were the only ones around at the time, but they didn't work very well, and they didn't work all the time at all. And so one of the great gifts of the last 5 or 6 years of my life since I ran across my first Access Consciousness class, is it opened up doors that had never been opened before for me and the biggest one, you guys, was asking the question, what if there's nothing wrong with them? What if they're just different?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up because I actually want to read this quote from the back of your book.
Yeah.
So the book is Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? And it says, people tend to function from the point of view that there is something wrong with these children because they don't learn the way the rest of us do. The reality is they pick up things in a totally different manner. We need to step up and find out how they learn, not try to teach them using methods that might have worked for us but definitely don't work for them. What if they could be seen as who they are, not who they aren't? What could change? So I would love to hear you talk more about that, maybe give us some examples of kids you've worked with and how coming at it from this perspective of there's nothing wrong changed things.
So I'll tell you a favorite story. It was a little guy. I met him when he was 7. And his mom called me up in tears and said, can you help my son? He has a problem with his anger and he has nightmares at night. And I said, absolutely, come on in. And I like to meet with parents first. So I met with her and her husband. And they walked in the room and she sat down and she said, I forgot to tell you that we've been living with cancer for the last 2.5 years. I was diagnosed with cancer, and my son came up to me the night before I called you and said, Mommy, I'm sorry I gave you cancer. And she cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. Well, so the story was when he was 4.5, he had a nightmare in the middle of the night and went into his parents' bedroom. And just as he leaned, her side of the bed was closest to the door. And as he was just reaching his hand down to touch her on her shoulder, she started having a seizure, and she'd never had a seizure before. And her report of the seizure was that it was a total blackout. She has absolutely no memory of anything. Mm-hmm. And it was apparently terrifying. And he started screaming and woke the dad up. Dad was a very sound sleeper, and she got taken to the emergency room, and they did a CAT scan and an MRI, and they found a tumor, and it was malignant. So for 2.5 years, she had radiation and chemo, and she was lively and enthusiastic, and their whole family was pretty vibrant, and the diagnosis of cancer really changed a lot for them. And so the news was that the tumor was now smaller than the size of a quarter. Mm-hmm. And she was supposed to go in every 4 months for MRIs just so the doctors could check and make sure that it wasn't getting bigger, blah, blah. But she said after she started healing, the family sort of fell apart. And this little guy started having huge tantrums. He didn't sleep much at night at all and had nightmares sort of all through her treatment. And I said to her, and she said, and he and I have always been very close. Mm-hmm. And I started asking her questions like, is he sensitive? And she said, very sensitive. And I said, is he sensitive to you? Can he know always what's going on with you? And she said, yes. And I said, what if that sensitivity is actually awareness? Like, what if he's really aware of stuff going on? And she said, yeah. And I said, so what if he actually saved your life? Like, what would have happened if he hadn't have been there at that exact moment when you started having that seizure? Because she and her husband both worked for the police department, and he was a detective, so he was trained in like CPR and that kind of stuff. Right. And I said, what could have happened if he hadn't woken you up then? And she burst into tears, and she sort of got it. So long story short is I worked with them for 4 or 5 weeks, and she actually went in for her MRI, and the doctor said, this is stunning. I've never seen this before, but we can't really see it. We think it's there, but we can't see it. Right. And then I met with a little guy, and I said he said, we were playing, and he said, I thought we were supposed to talk about my feelings. And I said, we can do that. So we sat down, and I said, so what would you like to tell me? And he said, well, I get really mad sometimes, and I throw tantrums. And I said, and how do you sleep? And he said, oh, I sleep fine. And I said, your mom told me about, and he went, oh, that. And I said, can you tell me about that? And so he recounted exactly the same story that his mom had told me. And I looked at him and I said, do you know things that other people don't know? And his whole body, he stopped breathing. You know that moment where people like get it? Yeah. And I said, what if you know things that nobody else knows? What if you knew the exact right time to have that nightmare, and the exact kind of nightmare that would have been so scary that it would have woken you up and made you go find your mom? Mm-hmm. And what if you knew exactly the time to touch her on her shoulder so that when she started to have the seizure, you would be there and you would be able to scream and wake your dad so that your dad could work on her and call for the ambulance and so she could be taken to the hospital? And he just looked at me and I said, what if you actually saved her life? And I can't even begin to tell you, it's like he was like this little wise man when he walked in and he was a kid. I could just see the worry and the blame and the judgment and the fault finding and all those demons that tell you there's something wrong with you, right? Yeah. That we get stamped with or stamp ourselves with as kids. They fell away.
Oh, that's
and he
awesome.
Floated out of the room. And then next week his mom brought him back and she said, can I talk to you first? And I said, yeah. And she said last night at the baseball game, her other son was playing baseball. The little guy came over to me and said, hey, Mom, Miss Ann says I know things that nobody else knows. Right? And I said to his mom, so what'd you say? And she said, well, I asked him, do you? And he goes, yep.
Right.
Well,
and on that note, we're actually going to take a break. We will be back in just a few minutes to talk more with Anne about Kids Done Different.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Pam Hoteline, and we are talking about Kids Done Different. And our guest today is Anne Maxwell, and Marilyn is calling in from the United Club at the airport. Marilyn, are you available right now? She's muting when she can't talk because it's too noisy.
So funny.
All right. I'm thinking Marilyn can't talk right now. So I am going to ask the question that Marilyn sent us in. So Marilyn said, one thing she's always been aware of with you, Anne, is that you empower kids. Can you talk about how this is different from the way most adults treat children?
That's a great question, and that is what I do. And most of the adults that I know, certainly that I grew up with, and the ones that I went through training with and worked with, it's almost like they treat kids as lovely but little, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a diminution of them, like almost like kids get patronized a lot. Oh, they're too little. They're not going to understand, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so not been my experience. And one of the ways to disempower kids or disempower people is to not acknowledge them, to think that you're superior somehow because you're older, so you know more. And it doesn't mean that you become a doormat and let like demon kids run over you. It's not that at all. But there's like being to being, there's a way that I connect with kids that is a lot easier for me than it is with adults. Hate to say it, girls, but it's true. And I think that's one of the ways that I empower them is I totally listen to them. I'm present with them. I don't judge them, and I ask them questions. Like I don't make them feel bad for choices that they make. And so for this guy, I didn't give him a lecture about how he needed to do this, that, or the other thing to fix himself. Mm-hmm. I just asked him the question, do you know things that other people don't know?
Yeah.
And what if you actually saved your mom's life? And it changed everything for him.
Yeah.
And it would have been different if I'd said to him, well, you actually saved your mom's life because, right? Because that would have been me preaching down to him. But when I asked him the question, what if you save your mom? What if you saved your mom's life? Mm-hmm. And it's like he got it. And asking questions. One of my favorite people, Blossom Benedict, says that a question isn't a question if you know the answer before you ask it.
Oh, I like that. I haven't heard it talked about that way.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So a question is a question if you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And the kind of questions that I ask kids are questions that are designed to tap them into what they actually do know, to tap them into being present and being aware of what's actually going on. And so there's no right or wrong way ever for any kid to answer a question.
Yeah.
And they know that. They get that from me. I think that's really empowering too, is to know that I'm good with whatever they say. It doesn't make a difference to me. I mean, it's them, it's their life, it's their choice, it's not mine. And I'll ask them a lot of questions that open doors for them that they can choose to walk through or not. And again, if they choose not to, I have no point of view about that. I have no judgment of them. It's like, when you're ready, you're ready.
Yeah.
And I don't say that, but I am that presence with them.
Well, and one of the things I'm really excited about is you are helping to start an online school that's coming from that space of acknowledging kids, empowering kids, asking questions, don't look for answers, don't judge. Can you tell us a little bit about that school?
Yeah, and that school, I want to go back to that school. Gary Douglas, who's who's the founder of Access Consciousness, I heard a soundbite of him that from a class that he did 10 years ago. He's been talking about starting a school for 10 years, and his vision for the school has always been that kids need a place where they're not judged, where they're not labeled, where they're not made to feel wrong or feel bad about who they are, but where who they are is fine, and where they're given, where there are possibilities for them to learn the way they learn. So this school, we're going to be teaching kids the way they learn, not the way other people say they should learn, which is it's so simple, but it's such a different concept. It's going to be offering a core curriculum, and we're going to teach it the way they learn.
You mean they don't have to fit into the box of the school system and how everybody thinks they should learn and what they learn?
I know, right? Oh my God. that was like what it was like at the residential treatment center. We're going to fix you so you can fit in.
Yeah.
Well, half of them they were all X-Men anyway. They didn't want to fit in.
Okay. So tell me, what's an X-Men? Because I know, but I like our listeners.
So an X-Man is something that it's a term of affection that a lot of us use for people who have been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And it comes from the movie of, I watched it I travel like you guys, we travel around the world a lot, and I was on some long flight from somewhere to somewhere recently, and I watched the X-Men movie, and it was awesome. And it's just about superhuman powers.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it's it's movicized, it's glorified and like that kind of stuff. But these kids, what if there's nothing actually wrong with these kids, right? What if they're just different? And they do have these magical capacities that so many of them are so incredibly aware of so much more than a lot of other people are. Mm-hmm. And yet I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I knew there was a whole lot more going on than what anybody else was willing to admit to, right? And
I
kind
of recognize that.
Kind of recognize that a little bit, right? It's like, nothing wrong here. It's like, it's so bad. No, it's not, right?
Yeah.
Stiff upper lip and all, right? And so those are those kids.
Like, just for an example, so I'm thinking of kids with autism. What are some of the capacities that you see in them, the tools you use that allow you to connect with them, work with them in ways that just normal everyday people trying to get them to do things doesn't work?
So here's what doesn't work. Logic.
Okay. Say more.
No way, no how. They are not, you cannot communicate with them in a logical way and have it result in anything other than frustration on everybody's part. They are not logical.
Okay.
They are not linear. Their awareness is spherical, if you will, like a sphere. It's not even circular, it's spherical. It's from all angles, from everywhere. They can see so much all at once, and it's not even seeing. It's like they perceive it, and they do it energetically. So what's the energy of that? It's like, so one of my favorite ways to describe it, have you noticed that you can change what you say, and you can change what you do, and you can change how you say it, and you can change how you do it, but if you don't change what's underneath it, what's actually driving it, which a lot of neuroscientists and a lot of child psychiatrists come up with a lot of different labels for whatever that is. Yeah. What I call it is the energy of it. If the energy that's creating those patterns that you get into doesn't change, nothing changes.
Yeah.
So these kids don't think from A to B to C to D. They think from D to Q to M to A to P and just ding, 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 right? These are the kids who, when they're given a math problem, they know the answer, but they can't tell you how they got there. These are the kids who get accused of cheating or plagiarizing because what they write is, quote, too perfect, even though nobody can find a source that they were supposedly copying. I had a kid like that a year ago who was accused of that. They're like the extraordinary kids. So we just call them the X-Men. And these are the kids. My favorite quote of Albert Einstein is what the book is based on. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Wow. These are kids who are like the fish, who are who for generations have been made to feel bad because they can't climb the tree that everybody else can climb. Or not everybody else, but a lot of people, the makers of school and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So one of the tools that I use with these kids, because they function energetically, is that one of my favorites is to send them pictures. Here's the deal. These kids think in pictures. They think in pictures, they think in patterns, they think in shades, they think in colors. They think in all that kind of stuff. That's their quote thinking. And so if you want a child to do something, one of the things that I love to encourage parents and teachers to do is to send them the picture, which is really just to send them the energy of what it's like when they're doing it, right? So if mornings, for example, at home are just hideous and your kids who've been diagnosed with any of those don't want to leave the house or don't want to get out of bed or whatever, if you send a picture of what it's like to wake up in the morning and have it be easy and peaceful and have everybody get along, it's like you don't have these specific things like they're going to wear this and they're going to wear that, but just the energy of what it's like in the house when it's easy and everybody gets in the car at the right time or at the same time and they go off to school. Or if you want them to clean their room, send them the energy of what it's like to be in their room when it's all tidy and all clean and how yummy that is, because they'll clean it. So, and in the example in the morning, the mornings get peaceful.
So rather than what so many times people recommend, which is break the task of getting dressed down into little steps and trying to get them to do all these steps, you're just sending the picture of easily getting dressed.
Yeah.
And they do.
And here's the other thing. We already send those pictures, right? For mornings that are chaotic in a home, when the alarm goes off, everybody sends everybody else the pictures of pure chaos. If that's what's in the home every day, those are the pictures everybody's sending each other. And all it takes is one person to send a different picture, right?
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. And so sending the picture is actually, here's the big deal. Sending the picture is actually simply being the energy. So you be the energy of a peaceful morning. And you send that telepathically, intuitively, however you want to talk about it.
Uh-huh.
And that's what you create. It's amazing.
And the simplicity and ease of that compared to what most people are trying to do is just phenomenal.
I know, and it's so fun.
Time again for another break. So we're going to go have a commercial break, and then we will be back with Anne Maxwell.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know. I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back everybody to the Irreverent Therapists, where we are talking with Anne Maxwell about kids done different. And in our last segment, we talked some about the school that you're helping to start. Can you tell us, people, where to find out more about that?
Yes, we have a landing page at www.accesspossibilities, plural, accesspossibilitiesschool.com. So it's www.accesspossibilitiesschool.com. And yeah.
And I was going to say, while I'm thinking of it, also just if they want to find out more about you and, what you're creating, in addition to the school, do you have a website or an email where they could write to you?
I do. I have a website, which is www.childfamilyplaytherapy.com. And the best email to get to me is Anne@childfamilyplaytherapy.com. That's a great email for me.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking some about different tools and approaches you have for working with kids that create more for the kids and for everyone else. What else would you like to share with us today?
I don't. Can we talk just a tiny bit more about the school? I would love to do that.
Yes.
So the school, it's a private online school, and we're opening it up. We're going to start with kindergarten through the 8th grade. And one of the things that I love about this school is that nobody else is doing a school like we are. I think you said we start on September 8th. And most online schools, it's probably a good thing I didn't know very much about online schools at all when I started sort of getting this pulled together, like organizing all of this. But for those of you who don't realize it, online schools are really pretty much self-directed. And with few exceptions, kids download their stuff, they watch videos, they read books, they do worksheets, they do workbooks, they do whatever, and then they upload whatever it is that they've done. Then it gets graded, and then they get an email or maybe once in a while a phone call. But the average teacher has who does online school has like 220 to 250 kids on her student load, and that absolutely floored me when I found out about it. And I found out about it after we created the school that we're creating right now, which is an online school that has all the advantages, a lot of the advantages of a brick and mortar school, so that we have hardware or software for a virtual classroom, so that teachers and kids can see each other, and kids can see each other, and there's going to be daily contact, like there'll be daily classes being taught with teachers and kids from all around the country, certainly, and all around the world if they want to, especially for the after-school programs. But this is going to be based in U.S. time, and it's so exciting. The vendors love us. The vendors are so excited. We're going to start We're going to start a program for Australia and New Zealand in February at the start of their school year. And so as we reach around the world and do this in other countries, we will be offering the curriculum based on the standards for whatever that country is and in whatever the language of that country is, so that when kids graduate, they'll get whatever the certificate is or degree that they would get when they finish their whatever the equivalent of high school is. So it's a core curriculum offered in a manner where we're actually teaching kids the way they learn. And I am so excited.
I am so excited about it too. And what I love about, when you just started talking about this, you said, well, it's probably kind of good that I didn't really know much about online schools. Because instead of having like a point of view of this is what is available to offer, and fitting into what everybody else was doing, you guys were able to ask questions and look at what would you like to create with kids and for kids, and you've come up with something totally different. And that's exactly how you work with kids as well.
Right, exactly.
You don't try to fit in the box of what everybody else is doing.
Well, and one of the things that I love about working with kids is that for the most part, they don't have a sense of what failure is. Stuff doesn't work and they drop it and they go pick up something else, right? Or they go do it. they go do something different. And that's actually the energy of what this school has been. But, at first I thought, all right, well, we'll just buy a curriculum. I thought originally we were going to literally buy an online school and then buy a curriculum and fit everybody into it. Well, online schools, for the most part, are not for purchase. And second of all, we wouldn't want one. And then the curriculum that we found was all terrible. It was all really rigid and boring. And I would watch some of the lessons and think, oh my God, there is no way. As an adult, I can't even bear to look at this. I can't imagine what a kindergartner would do if this is the program that they had. So it's like, okay, all right, so what else are we going to do? And one of my colleagues who's been doing this with me said, well, we'll just create our own curriculum. Okay, let's do that then. So what are the elements of that? Like, what do we have to do? Like that. It's been so much fun. So that's what we're doing. And we'll be fully accredited, completely accredited. In fact, Pam, you want to know and Marilyn, you want to know what's so funny is the accreditation agency. I thought they were going to be rigid and rule bound and tell us what we had to do everything the old fashioned way, like with tests and all that kind of stuff. No, they are so excited that we're going to be we're going to be stepping so far outside of the box and offering assessments that are project-based and portfolio-based and test-based for kids who want to be test-based. But like all these other options and ways of evaluating how kids are doing and like that, and still offering a core curriculum. Right? A rigorous core curriculum. I mean, this is not a schlumpy school. There's, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm so excited. I don't know. So, yeah.
How about, so we've been talking on the show about, kids with different kinds of labels like autism and, disruptive disorder, whatever. So, for those kids, what are you guys have in mind for how you can work with them in ways that will work for them?
Well, one of the things that I get and that you guys get as therapists is that behavior is a form of communication. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that's the most frustrating for many kids is school. And one of the things, and then behind that, in addition to that, one of the things that's most frustrating for people in general is to not be acknowledged, to be talked down to be made to be wrong for who you are, to be judged, to be labeled, to be made to feel like you're not good enough. And with very few exceptions, that's what most schools make most kids feel like.
Yeah.
And so, there's all kinds of behavior that communicates that indirectly because nobody listens, right? Yeah. Or if they do listen, they can't do anything about it or they feel helpless. There's so many parents that feel so helpless. And so I get that a lot of those behaviors are just going to disappear because so many elementary, I've talked to so many teachers too. We've got a great bunch of teachers coming on, but 3 of them stopped teaching in the elementary school because they said that what they did was mostly behavior management. They taught the kids how to take tests so the school looked good, and they just managed the behavior. And the way they managed the behavior was by making kids, it's almost like public shame, by making them feel bad and be bad for not behaving the right way, right? So we're not going to have that because it's just not going to be a deal.
I want to go to your school.
I want to go to my school too. And we've got these amazing teachers that are coming up with these sample lesson plans that just make my body go, yes, let's do that. So fun.
That's awesome. Well, okay, so I'm intrigued. Like when you said, behavior is a form of communication, I feel like you have so many of these gems of like that, because as soon as you say that, for me, because yes, I'm a therapist, but I've never been trained in working with kids. I just have my own kids.
Right? Yeah. Rephrase that. I have been intensely trained by kids.
Yes. But it's whether you're a teacher or a parent, just that awareness of behavior as a form of communication. What is this that they're telling me? What's going on under it? Because I think as parents, it's so easy to get caught up in, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this again. And there's no question in there. I mean, people who've been listening to our show for a while know, Marilyn and I, and of course as an access facilitator also, we're all about asking questions. So, what can you say to parents when they're hitting that point of exasperation with their kids and whatever the behavior is?
So you want to know one of the questions that I ask parents that will, and kids too as well, anybody that will get you beyond your logical brain, because if your logical brain actually worked, there would be nothing bothering you ever, right? Yeah. So the question gets you beyond your logical brain and into the space of whatever the energy is that's creating that. So this is the question that I ask them. So what do you know about your son that you're pretending not to know or denying that you know, that if you could acknowledge it would change everything? And they look at me like I walked off Mars. And I smile at them and I say, so what do you know about your son? And then they'll start talking.
Wow.
And they talk and talk and talk. And once in a while they'll stop and I go, cool. And what else do you know? And it'll bring up something. And what else do you know? And they'll get to it. They'll get to, oh, he was tired, or oh, his second grade teacher is so mean to him and embarrasses him in front of the other kids, or oh, he's worried because, I ended up going to the hospital and the last time I went in the hospital, I told them I was coming home and I didn't for like 3 weeks after that. Whatever it is, there's always something going on.
Yeah.
Like, what are they saying, right?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about that is, just the way you're talking about that and asking those questions, you're empowering the parents as well as empowering the kids.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I have no preset. There's no answer to that. I don't know what's going on. I'm happy to, that's what I do. I open up doors. I ask questions and open up doors.
Yeah.
You know, and it's up to them whether they step through or not. And most of the time they do.
They
Not
do.
always, but most of the time they do. And when they don't, it just takes a while.
Yeah. So on that note, we're going to go to another break, and we will be back talking a little bit more with Anne Maxwell on Kids Done Different.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
If you remember living fearlessly, joyfully, and in a world filled with adventure, happiness, pleasure, and unbridled living, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, as I bring you the world's top experts in wealth, creativity, flow, seat-edging technology, space, wellness, health, love, lust, and passion, all merging together each week here at the Hub of Happiness. Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Passionate Living, where you can ride on the magic carpet ride of living and learn how to lead a passionately wild, exciting, and outrageously amazing life.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to The Irreverent Therapist. I'm Pam Hodeling. Marilyn Bradford is listening in and writing in comments, but unable to be live on the show. And we have Anne Maxwell, child and family therapist, access consciousness facilitator, author, and just amazing being. And we have probably about 12 more minutes. Nope, wait, let me make that more like 10 more minutes left. So what else would you like to talk about that has to do with kids?
Oh, there's so much to talk about.
One thing I think of, because we talked about autism, OCD is another thing that, comes up a lot and that I know you have a very different take on than most people do.
Yeah, OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's for people who have repetitive thoughts or perseverative thoughts and or repetitive behaviors. And these are some of the most aware people in the world really all of the ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism in their own different way. They're just so aware. And so one of the tools that I teach, so first the story and then a tool. So 10-year-old was in my office and he was homeschooled because he has OCD and he just couldn't manage to be in the craziness of the classroom. And so his mom was homeschooling him, but he would come in periodically and chat. And we were talking and he looked over my shoulder, which is where the phone was. And then he looked at me and his eyes started to light up. And then he looked at the phone again and he looked at me and the phone rang. And I said to him, I raised my eyebrow and I said to him, "You knew that was going to ring, didn't you?" And he goes, "Yep." And that's how they are. Like in the book, a friend and a colleague of ours used to work with in the special ed classes in the school system, and there was she was talking to this kid, I think he'd been labeled with ADD, and he looked up at the sky and she said, "What do you see?" And he said, "The airplanes are coming." And she thought, huh. And they kept on talking, and sure enough, like within 2 minutes, there were airplanes that flew over, like that kind of stuff. They're just extraordinary. So the OCD, the OCD kids, my favorite tool is to teach them the difference between what they're aware of and what is actually them. And so it's a tool that's designed to teach them about perceiving, that they can perceive the energy, that a lot of the information that they get most of it comes from other people. And so one of my favorite tools and one of my favorite questions is to ask, who does that belong to? Is that yours or someone else? And you don't have to know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. It's really a question that's designed to create the awareness that it's probably actually not yours. And like I said, you don't have to know where it's coming from. Sometimes it'll be evident, but most of the time it's not. And when you ask, who does that belong to, your body will, what I've noticed with myself and with my clients and with my friends who use the question, is that bodies relax when they realize that it actually isn't them and they don't need to take on all these thoughts or all these feelings or all these emotions of other people, mm-hmm. that they can actually just simply be aware that they're out there and that they're not theirs. And I've had like a 10-year-old girl. I just loved her. I don't know. She's 8 maybe. And she was really cranky because she didn't want to come in and see me. And she's so OCD. And I asked her, so Truth, she told me some story. And I said, so Truth, was that yours or is that somebody else's? And her body just lit up. And she started to giggle. And then she remembered she was supposed to be cranky. So she tried to wipe the giggle out of her body, but she couldn't do it. And I said, ha ha.
Gotcha.
Your body's going, yay, it's not ours. Right? I love working with kids. But anyway, that's one of my favorites. And your body will tell you. Mm-hmm. Your body will lighten up because bodies get tired of hanging on to all this stuff that isn't actually theirs. And as kids, we get trained to do that, right? We get trained to take on other people's stuff, or we just do it just because we're loving and we're so aware, and we know that if they could just see or if they could just do things a little bit differently, everything would change. But all it ever does is end up gunking us up, and the people that we're trying to heal keep on creating it. So it's like
Now, how about Marilyn's writing in, how do you deal with kids who've been abused? What do you do that's different?
So with kids who have been abused, it's really interesting. That was one of the really sore spots for me at that treatment center. And there's something about, I knew it back then, how resilient kids are. And there was one little girl that I worked with who'd been sexually molested by numerous men and boys, both relatives and strangers. And night times were difficult for her. And the way she coped was she just shut down. She wouldn't talk. She would make no eye contact. She wouldn't even eat. She was a skinny little thing.
Yeah.
And what I did this was 22 years ago. What I did with her was I just let her be, and I didn't make her make eye contact with me, and I didn't make her talk. And I all the treatment plans, all the mental health workers wanted her to have as treatment goals or treatment objectives that she would say 2 words when asked a question, or like all that. It's like, I got all of that taken out of her treatment plan. And that's how I work with people who have been abused, is just simply to be there with them and not have a point of view about what happened to them or what happened to, or what the abuse was, because so much of the time it's really the people who are around them that make it be such a big deal. And that may sound really strange, but what I got from her was when nobody had a point of view about what had gone on in her family, it was easier for her than when everybody was horrified by what had gone on. And she knew energetically, instantly, where you stood there. The other thing about abuse and kids is a lot of times the kids who have, quote, been abused are the ones who take the abuse so that their siblings don't get abused, or to keep something secret, or to expose something. There's some reason that they do it that makes sense for them in their world. Or maybe it's the only way that they can have a connection or be close to whoever it is who's abusing them. Because so much of childhood sexual abuse is that it's tied to, quote, love.
Yeah.
And it's how affection is shown in a family, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And when you stop making it wrong and you step outside of this is the worst thing in the whole world, and into, like, what did that create? And what can you do with that now? Like, what do you know? What do you know that nobody else knows? Mm-hmm. Right? And what if you can create whatever kind of life for yourself that you would like to create? If you want to make it terrible and be bound down by it, you can. But if you don't have to. You can create something different with it. So
cool. That's so cool. So we have just a couple of minutes left. Is there anything that you'd like to tell everybody listening about kids that you haven't gotten to? Well, I know you could go on for hours and hours, days and days. And
so
there's
well.
your book that people could go read, Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree, by Anne Maxwell, Gary Douglas, and Dr. Dane here. But any last parting words for everybody?
I guess my last parting word is, what if you were to ask the kids in your life like a question, like, what do you know? Right?
Yeah.
Like when they come up and go blah, 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 and you go, oh, so what do you know about that? Or what was that? What do you know about that? They know so much. I love talking to kids.
Well, and you're willing to acknowledge that they know, ask them questions, and it creates total change for them.
It totally does. And it's fun. Yeah. They're a whole lot of fun. They are really fun to be with. Most of them are. Not all of them. Most of them are.
Well, so next week, I just want to let people know we're going to be talking about, have you alienated your body, and things having to do with your body. We've been talking with Anne Maxwell. And Anne, tell us one more time how people can get in touch with you and how they can find out more about your school.
So the best way to get in touch with me about the school is Anne Maxwell at accesspossibilitiesschool.com. And the website is www.accesspossibilitiesschool.com. We have a landing page, and within a week or two, we're going to have a full-blown website that we'll just keep adding to. But please, please, please get in contact with me if you're a parent interested, or if you're a teacher and you'd like more information, or if you'd like to make a to support it financially. It's private, so it's not part of the public school system at all.
Well, and thank you, Anne. I am so glad to know you're out there in the world creating something totally different for kids. It's needed. It's about time.
Right? It's like all the kids are going, yay!
Yay! So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Marilyn, who's, here with us, but not actually talking. And we will be back with you guys again next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.